This is the story of the first time Khalid ibn al-Walid was tested on the side of Islam. He had no rank, no appointment, no title. He had been a Muslim for less than a year. 3 commanders would die. The army would be surrounded. 200,000 enemies would be waiting, and no one had asked him to do anything. To understand what he did, you have to understand what he walked into, and it begins with a man most people have never heard of. His name was al-Harith ibn Umair al-Azdi. He was a messenger, not a soldier, a man sent with the Prophet's letter to the ruler of Busra in what is now southern Syria. His life was protected by a law older than any nation, a law every civilization in human history had honored since before written records. You do not kill an envoy. A Ghassanid chieftain named Shurabil ibn Amr did not care about that law. He stopped al-Harith on the road. He had him bound. He had him tortured. He had him beheaded. Then he picked up a spear and drove it into a man who was already dead. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, heard what had been done, he prepared a response. Not for territory, not for politics. Because a man who carried his letter had been killed on a road, and the man who did it believed there would be no consequence. There would be a consequence, and Khalid ibn al-Walid would be there to see it through. Understand what Muta was. This was not a tribal skirmish, not a desert raid against a weakened enemy. This was the first time in history that the Muslim army would face the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, the inheritors of Rome, the most powerful military machine in the known world. The Muslim force, 3,000 men, the Byzantine army, reinforced by their Christian Arab allies, numbered somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 soldiers. 3,000 against 200,000. Khalid ibn al-Walid was in that army of 3,000. He was not the commander. He was not even an officer. He was a new Muslim, months into the faith, one soldier among 3,000 heading toward the largest force the early Muslim community had ever faced. Every man in that army knew the numbers. The march to Muta took days. They had time to count, time to think, time to go home. What Khalid chose to do instead is the story of this episode. The Prophet appointed 3 commanders and named them in sequence. If the first falls, the second takes command. If the second falls, the third. If the third falls, the army will choose among themselves. He did not say, if they fall, come home. He said, find another man and keep going. Khalid was in that army when those words were given. He heard the order. He knew what it meant. He just did not know yet that the army would eventually look to him. The first commander was Zayd ibn Haritha. Zayd had been born free, taken as a slave as a boy, and sold in the markets of Mecca. The Prophet freed him. When Zayd's father came to take him home, the Prophet said, let the boy choose. Zayd looked at his father. He looked at the Prophet. He said, I will not leave you for anything in this world. Zayd is the only companion of the Prophet to be named, directly, by name, in the Quran itself. Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 37. His name, the only companion, so honored. This is the man the Prophet sent first, not the most powerful general, the most beloved person he had on earth. Khalid knew who Zayd was. Everyone did. The second commander was Jafar ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin, the man who most resembled him in character and bearing. Years before Muta, when the early Muslims fled Mecca and sought refuge in Abyssinia, Jafar stood before the Negus, the emperor of Abyssinia, in a foreign court, with everything riding on his words. He recited Surah Maryam, the Quran's account of Mary and Jesus. The Negus wept, the bishops wept, until their scrolls were wet with their tears. The emperor gave the Muslims his protection. A man who could move an emperor with recitation alone was the second commander at Muta. The third commander was Abdullah ibn Rawaha, a poet, one of the finest Arabia had produced. He had been asking Allah, specifically and persistently, for a martyr's death since the beginning of his faith. He wrote it into his poetry. He said it plainly, on record. I ask for a mortal strike from a sword, deep enough to show what is inside me, so that when men pass my grave, they will know I did not hold back. These were the 3 men ahead of Khalid in line, the beloved, the cousin, the poet, and Khalid ibn al-Walid,
months into his faith, no rank, no title, was somewhere in that army, watching all three of them walk toward the same outcome.
When the Muslim force reached the outskirts of Mu'tah, they stopped. The scouts came back with the numbers: 100,000 Byzantine soldiers. Behind them, tens of thousands more. The army held a council. Men who were not cowards said what any honest man would say: "We should send to the Prophet for guidance. We should wait. We should not do this." Abdullah ibn Rawaha stood up. He said, "Men, what you dislike is exactly what you came for. We are not fighting with numbers. We are not fighting with strength. We are fighting with this faith that Allah has honored us with. Both outcomes before us are good: victory or martyrdom." The army moved forward. Khalid moved with them. Zayd ibn Haritha, the beloved, went to the front of the line, the way he always did. He was killed in the first exchange. Khalid watched it happen. Jafar ibn Abi Talib picked up the banner. When his horse became dangerous to control in the chaos, he dismounted. He killed the horse himself. A cavalry commander who kills his own horse is telling you something. He was not going anywhere. He had chosen his ground. He fought until his right arm was cut off. He switched the banner to his left hand. His left arm was cut off. He clasped the banner between his stumps and held it upright, until a Byzantine sword found him and cut him in two. When they found his body, they counted the wounds. 50. Not one of them was on his back. In Medina, while this was happening, the Prophet went quiet among his companions. He said, "I saw Jafar. He was flying in paradise, with wings of blood." The companions had not yet received the news from Mu'tah. No messenger had arrived. The Prophet had seen it, before anyone told him. Khalid was on that field when Jafar fell. He saw the banner go down. Abdullah ibn Rawaha, the poet, took the banner, and then he stopped. Not from cowardice, from something more honest than cowardice. He stood at the edge of the line, and he felt his soul resist. He described it himself. He said he argued with his own soul, the way you argue with something that will not move. You have been asking for this your entire life. Every prayer, every poem, every battle you survived when you wanted to die in it. Now it is here, and you hesitate? He called his own soul weak. Then he got off his horse. He walked toward the Byzantine line on foot. He was killed moving forward. The man who had written his death into his poetry died in exactly the shape he had described, moving forward, with wounds that faced the right direction. 3 commanders dead, and Khalid ibn al-Walid was still on that field, watching, waiting, a soldier with no rank in an army that had just lost every appointed leader it had. The banner was on the ground. A man named Thabit ibn Akram picked it up. You will not find his name in most accounts of this battle. He is not remembered the way the 3 commanders are remembered. But in the gap between 3 dead commanders and total collapse, it was Thabit who held the line. He steadied the men around him. Then he looked across the field. His eyes found Khalid ibn al-Walid. Khalid had no appointment, no rank, no title. He had been a Muslim for months. A moment of recognition between 2 men on a battlefield. The simplicity of it is everything. Thabit walked the banner to him and placed it in his hands. Everything that follows in Khalid's story, Yarmouk, the Ridda Wars, the Persian campaign, it all begins here, in this moment, on this field, with a banner placed in his hands by a man nobody remembers. Now it was Khalid's turn. He did not charge. He did not run. That night, in the dark, he reorganized his entire force. He moved the rear guard to the front. He placed fresh banners on units that had never carried them. He shifted every formation. When dawn came, the Byzantine commanders looked at the Muslim lines and saw a different army than the one they had fought the day before. New banners, new positions, new faces at the front. The question moved through their command. Did reinforcements arrive from Medina overnight? That hesitation cost them the initiative. Khalid broke 9 swords that day. 9. The last weapon in his hands was a spear. Then he launched a controlled assault, not to win the field, but to create distance, to open space between his men and the army that outnumbered them 60-1. He brought them home, broken, bloodied, alive. When the army returned to Medina, the city came out to meet them. They brought dust. People lined the road and threw it. They called them cowards, men who had run when they should have died. The men who had just watched 3 commanders fall, who had stood on a field against 200,000, who had survived what no one expected them to survive. They came home to dust in their faces. The prophet stood before the crowd. He said, "These are not men who fled. These are men who will return." He gave them a name, al-Qarar, those who attack again. Khalid ibn al-Walid stood among them when those words were spoken. He had been a Muslim for months. He had no record on the side of Islam. He had walked onto that field as a soldier and walked off it as something else entirely. The Prophet of Allah had just placed his name beside the men who do not break. This episode is sometimes told as a defeat. 3 commanders dead, the army driven back, the mission incomplete. But look at what Khalid did. He was not appointed. He was not asked. He was given a banner by a man acting on instinct, and he accepted it. He did not try to avenge the dead by charging into certain destruction. He did not retreat in panic. He thought. In the middle of the most desperate situation he had ever faced on the side of Islam, he thought clearly, he acted decisively, and he brought his men home. That is what Khalid ibn al-Walid was. Not just a man who won battles, a man who kept his mind working when everything around him had collapsed. Zayd walked to the front because that was what he had always done. Jafar killed his horse because he refused to give himself an exit. Abdullah argued with his own soul and won the argument. Each of those men showed Khalid something, and then it was his turn to show what he was made of. He was not made for glory. He was not made for recognition. He was made for exactly this: an impossible situation, no orders from above, a broken army, and a field full of enemies. He was made to think when others stopped thinking, to hold when others broke, to bring men home when every reason said to leave them. This was not the end of his story. This was the beginning of it. This is the straight path. Next episode, Khalid moves east, the Persian Empire, the Euphrates River, a battle so brutal the river changed color, and a decision Khalid made afterward that his own men could not understand, until they saw what it produced. If this reached you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Wassalamu alaikum.